Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone. My name is Kathy. We have frequently recommended that you visit the Idaho Cases of Judicial Interest web page. It has the filings in cases of interest to the public. There are several appellate cases. There are just 2 district court cases. We have been covering both of the district court cases. One is currently proceeding. It is State of Idaho versus Stacy Wandra. This is the case involving Michael Vaughn. Mr. Wandra was arrested in 2025 for this high-profile case. Judge Lee, who was presiding over that case, ordered a 4-day preliminary hearing, which just happened, although it just went 3 days. The reason for it is to determine if the state has sufficient evidence to bind a defendant over for a jury trial, like Mr. Wandra, who has been incarcerated over the past several months. The preliminary hearing in the Wandra case was not transmitted live. However, there were certain cameras in the courtroom to where mainstream media was able to tape part of it, show it later, take photographs, talk about what happened. The preliminary hearing was open to the public, and the state put on its case, put on the stand a number of witnesses, including the author of the affidavit of probable cause in Wandra, a detective, Juanita Kelleher. She's been involved in the case since day one, and she took the stand for a good part of the day. And there was other evidence that was introduced, taped recordings of Mr. Wandra with law enforcement. There was also a video recording of when he was in jail speaking with his mother, and other evidence that was brought out into open court that the public was able to learn about the evidence that the state had against Mr. Wandra. And at the end of the 3rd day of the preliminary hearing, Judge Lee found that probable cause existed, and Mr. Wandra is now being bound over for an arraignment, which will happen on April 15th, when he is expected to enter either a guilty or a not guilty plea for the 4 charges, including count 1, which is first-degree unaliving. Contrast this with the other case that appears on the Idaho Cases of Judicial Interest web page, district court case, long closed. This is Idaho versus Koberger. Unlike the transparency that has been seen thus far in the Wandra case, in the Idaho versus Koberger case, from the beginning of the case, there was a gag order that was put into effect day 4. There were numerous hearings that were held behind closed doors. There was no preliminary hearing. There was a preliminary hearing that was scheduled to occur the end of June 2023, but that never happened because what the prosecutor did is he convened a secret grand jury that met behind closed doors. At the end of that grand jury proceeding in May of 2023, an indictment was returned. Canceled the preliminary hearing. In the course of the more than 2.5 years that Idaho versus Koberger was proceeding, there were also numerous documents that were filed under seal. This case, even today, 8 months plus after Mr. Koberger pled guilty as he did on July 2nd, 2025, this case is still almost as completely sealed as it was when the case was proceeding. There was an interview that was taken of Mr. Koberger shortly after his arrest on December 30th, 2022, which, unlike the interviews that were taken of Mr. Wandra by law enforcement, the interview with Mr. Koberger have never been released to the public. There has been no hint of any alternate perpetrator, any co-conspirator, any accessory before the fact, any accessory after the fact. And still, the state continues to assert that it is Mr. Koberger and Mr. Koberger alone who committed these atrocities, these crimes at 1122 King Road on November 13th, 2022. So why is this case still so sealed from the public? Why such a difference with the Wandra case, which was extremely high profile, and the Koberger case, which was also extremely high profile? Many of the reasons given when one side or the other sought to have yet another document, particularly evidence, sealed for the public was that to put it out in the public domain would harm Mr. Koberger's right to a fair trial. Doesn't seem to be an issue in the Wandra case. All this evidence was released this week at the preliminary hearing. Until next time, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.